There. So today, the federal government announced an $82 billion package. Basically, they always call it a package. It's money that they're using to try and help the economy by providing Canadians with money, because we're obviously in a really weird time right now. A lot of people are losing their jobs, or they're having to shut the door on their business, or they're just having a lot of cancellations. Like, it's a really hard time for any economy when the people in the country can't leave the house. So the government is reacting to that, and they've announced a package today to try and allow the economy to keep going, but I think more importantly to support Canadians through this time when you can't leave the house, so that when we are able to leave the house, that there's money to be put into the economy, and that when businesses do reopen, that individuals can start going to their to those businesses and spending some money, right? Even if your savings were enough to get you through however long we're going to be in this social distancing space, certainly by the time we get to the end of it, if the government didn't help us, we'd have no money to spend at businesses. And so that's what the government did today. They announced a huge package, and there's a lot of details. I'm not an expert in government funding by any means, but I am following this pretty closely, and I spent a bunch of time today going through the video of the Prime Minister's speech, but also the Finance Minister's chat afterwards. And I took a bunch of notes. And so this is what I found to be important. And how I think it's gonna help you and how you can access this stuff. So there is the government announced a 10% subsidy to wages. So if you have a business, you have employees, then you can apply for the government to give you 10% of their wages as a way to encourage people to keep employees on the payroll. I don't personally think that that's a lot, but some is better than none, certainly. The big one, I think, is the emergency care fund and the emergency support benefit. So these two are like EI in the sense that you can apply for them when you have a shortage of work, but on the one of them is for people who are quarantined or caring for a loved one who's sick, or they have to be self-isolated, or whatever it is that you've been forced to stop working because of this, but that you don't qualify for EI. The other one is if you're a freelancer or a contractor or a small business owner who does not qualify for EI, and you've had to close your doors, like your business has had to close down, then you can apply for this emergency support benefit, and it works like EI. You apply for it, and they pay you out. They have said that it's going to be $900 every 2 weeks or so, up to a maximum of 15 weeks. So if you're a small business owner and you've had to shut your business down because of this COVID-19, then definitely apply for that. I'm going to put links in the description to this benefit and where you can go apply for it. I think it's better to apply now than to wait until you need it, because it's definitely it's going to take a couple of weeks. In fact, they said it would be 2 to 3 weeks before anything happened. So now that I'm saying that out loud, I realize he meant you can apply in 2 to 3 weeks. So there will be no link, but in 2 to 3 weeks you'll be able to apply for this. And yeah, $900 every 2 weeks, kind of like EI. Another thing that they're available early April. I wrote in my notes, apply online. So look for that. Yeah, about two weeks or so. The GST credit has also increased, so that the GST credit is to help individuals who are low income, so make less than about $56,000 in a year, and that GST credit is to offset the amount of GST that you, or HST, that you would pay at stores. And so they've increased that credit to $400 for a single person and $600 for a couple. So they send those out once a quarter, which means for couples it's about $200 a month. So not a lot, but every little bit helps. They've also increased the Canada Child Benefit by $300 per child. So that I think that'll be significant because that's over and above what was already being paid out. They have reduced the minimum withdrawals from registered retirement income funds. So if you're over 70 or over 65, if you have a RIF, then your minimum withdrawal has come down, which is good, because as our investments and as the market goes down, then as soon as you sell, then you crystallize that loss, and that's when that you don't have the potential for the upside when the market does rebound. So it's nice to be able to pull less money out of your investments right now. They're announcing a 6-month deferral on payments for student loans. So that's interest-free, and you could be payment-free for 6 months on your student loans, which is really great. For those of you who own a home, they have announced the insured mortgage payment program. They're reinstating it. So on Monday, this coming Monday, payments can be deferred for up to 6 months, which is amazing. So if you have mortgage payments and you're not sure how you're going to make it, call your bank. They are able to provide up to 6 months of deferred payments. So this doesn't mean that you've skipped your payments. You still owe that money to the bank, but you don't have to make that payment for 6 months. And there's no penalties or whatever for missing those payments, which is really good news. The banks are also providing the deferred payment options on other credit, so credit cards or line of credit or loans and that kind of thing. So if you're worried about not being able to make payments on your debt, call your bank. They are hugely in favor of supporting Canadians, but they're really trying their best to do what they can to allow Canadians to keep their cash, because cash flow right now is the second biggest issue behind the virus itself. So really important to be able to keep your cash in your bank, and that's a great way to do it. On the personal income tax front, which is something that affects me personally, obviously, because I'm a tax preparer, they have postponed the personal tax deadline to June 1st. So it used to be that everything had to be filed April 30th, and now everything has to be filed by May 31st, June 1st. So that means that you have an additional month to get your paperwork together. I don't recommend leaving it to the very last minute. Just because we have an extra month doesn't mean we necessarily need to take an extra month. I recommend getting your paperwork in still as soon as you can. Along that same lines, the payments so if you file taxes and you owe money, then it's not due to the government until August 31st now. So normally our payments are due to the government by April 30th, and now they've postponed those payments to August 31st, which they're hoping is going to keep a bunch of cash in the banks of individuals, which again helps with the economy and helps individuals to be able to obviously pay their bills and keep money or keep food in the fridge. That's the important thing. So today was the announcement, and they were chatting a little bit about logistics. Most of this can be applied for online in the coming weeks. It sounds like April, the first week in April-ish, is when all of this will start to kick in. And because they just announced it today, we don't actually have logistics necessarily on the details of how this is going to go out. But certainly this is a huge package that the government is creating and pushing through. They're also going to be creating emergency legislation that in the coming weeks. So we'll wait to see what that looks like. Another thing that they mentioned was that I didn't write down, but that they have announced, I think it's like $10 billion in loans and funding available through things like the BDC and the EDC, so the Export Development Council and the Business Development Council. I don't know what BDC stands for, but they are providing loans, and they are very low interest rate loans because the Bank of Canada just dropped the interest rate last week, 2.75%, the overnight rate, and they've also reduced the debt to asset ratio that you need to be able to get a loan. So easier to get a loan, lower interest rates right now. So all of these things that they have done is to provide cash to Canadians right now so that you can pay bills and to you can buy food, that kind of thing. They have not announced anything in the way of support for renters, but certainly if you are renting and you're unable to pay your rent, I would call your landlord and just chat with them, since their mortgage payments have been can be suspended. They might be a little bit more willing to suspend your payments as well. Anyways, I'm definitely not an expert, like I said, in government funding, but I am following this really closely. So if you have questions, or you don't know how this impacts you, or you're just freaking out about money, then I would love to chat with you and answer some questions, and let's create a game plan together, because I know this kind of thing is hard on a good day, and so when you add money trouble to this crazy world that we're in right now, and people getting sick and just all the things, I know it becomes that much more upsetting and difficult to handle. So let's chat, let's figure it out. I've left my call link in the description. You can book free 30 minutes with me to just go through what's bugging you, and we'll figure it out. If you have questions that you want to leave in the comments, please do that too, and I would be happy to answer them there. I'll see you tomorrow.